Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing The Shape of Water from Guillermo del Toro and presumably all of our opinions on lady/amphibian lovemaking.
GDT.
So if you're ever wondering our thoughts on that subject, you're about to find out. Joining me tonight, first up, his hair is on fleek. He's from Chicago and he drinks beer. His name is Joe.
If you don't have an opinion on woman on fish action, then you're part of the problem.
See, that's why I kept saying fish action, but he's really an amphibian. It's really
Sure.
woman on frog action or something.
He can go on land. you
Right,
know?
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that
Not
from
for
science
long.
class.
It's more of like a mud puppy or something, right?
The mud skipper.
Muddy the Mud Skipper.
Yeah. It's the Muddy the Mud Skipper show. Next up, the business manager at Bloody Good Horror. Yes, there is business that happens here, not just fish sex jokes. Please welcome John Schnorrs to the show.
Hey guys.
Next up, from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hello. And it's still like 90% fish sex jokes.
And finally, from Hotlanta, the chief priestess in charge of books and smart things at Bloody Good Horror. Please welcome Cece.
Hello.
I had a very distinct moment at the end of this movie, Cece, where some stuff started happening, and I was like, oh god, I'm so glad Cece's going to be on the show, because I feel like it got way, symbolology at the end of this movie, and I was like, okay.
There's a little bit there.
I was like,
There's
turn
a
on
little bit to unpack.
the CC signal. We need some assistance on this one. John Schnorrs,
Yeah, Eric.
I'm surprised you were able to make it tonight after the news came out about Scott Baio. I thought you might have to take a knee.
Wait, what? I've not even heard about the news about Scott Baio.
What kind of
Did he-
news? What kind of news do you think might come out about a male in Hollywood these days?
I was gonna say he got me
Yes.
dude. Really?
Yeah.
Wait, what has he been doing? Like, who is he around that he's even has
Well,
opportunity?
If you recall, John, he was on a show with two very underage girls in the 1980s.
Charles in Charge?
Yes.
Not in charge.
I'm
of his
not gonna give you the
sexual
whole
desires,
story.
apparently.
Oh, no.
Oh my god.
I don't like where this is going at all.
Schnorrs, you really need to set up some Google alerts so that my jokes will actually land during the show.
For Scott Baio?
For
So-
anything. For just every week on the show, you're just like, what? I haven't heard that. What the oh.
Yeah. Oh, fair.
Oh.
All right. That's good criticism. I'll take that into consideration, you know.
You know, if
Scott Baio, the fucking bell tolls for you.
if
man.
Gawker was still around, I would just tell you to visit there every day, but sadly it's not. So
Yeah. No, that's fair.
that would keep
Does that not
you-
exist anymore?
No,
No.
they got sued into oblivion by Peter Thiel.
Well, now he's gonna buy them.
Peter Thiel, a
finish the job.
person I bet Schnorrs knows all about.
I do know about Peter Thiel.
Yeah,
Man, I mean, not that much really. I just
Yeah.
know a little bit, but
you just had sushi
I
with
don't
him
know
once.
if you guys are familiar with the Daily Mail, but those guys are just like pure
Yeah.
garbage, and they have the best.
Daily Mail's pretty good. I like Daily Mail.
did they not cover the Scott Baio news?
Oh, they sure did.
I was like, I can't imagine they didn't.
What's
Wait.
weird is I got an alert about that guy from Glee that was brought up on sex abuse charges that hung himself. But I don't get alerts for everything they post. Like for some reason I got an alert for that. Like I don't know what my settings are that I only
Wait,
get alerts for.
Alert for what?
So Puck from Glee,
No. That part I know. Joe, what is on your phone that's giving you an alert from that?
Daily Mail.
He knows.
You have the
I
Daily
forgot
Mail
that
app
part.
on your phone?
Oh, absolutely. What are you guys doing?
Wow.
The jive.
Oh, Joe,
What a-
the chive. Jesus, what is
A lot
it?
of housewives
2004.
on there.
Joe, speaking of housewives, did you see that? I don't know, one of them or something is going to be on Celebrity Big Brother.
Oh yeah. Well,
He's
Brandi
the one that
Glanville.
posted the casting list.
Well, that's why I'm asking his opinion.
Well, Brandi Glanville, she's a former Real Housewife of Beverly Hills.
She doesn't
and
count.
She I don't know if she got booted or she just left. She's been gone for a while, but she's pretty much an awful human being. Her and Omarosa together is gonna be just
Oh my
non-stop
God.
noxious fights.
My wife and I were talking about it yesterday because we're Big Brother fans, and that just led to a discussion of like, I don't know, the cast is kind of weak, and then I told her, I was like, nothing will ever beat the surreal life, and then she was like, what's a surreal life? So then I had to tell her all about, you know, Mini Me getting naked and peeing in the corner his first night, and
While on his little scooter.
While
like,
on his
feet off
scooter.
his scooter.
Oh, man.
yeah,
I
Vanilla.
can't
Guys,
believe they
I'm
can
still
get,
recovering from this Scapeo news, so
I know that's
need
why I
y'all
was.
I can't
slow
believe
down.
they didn't get Heidi and Spencer for Celebrity Big Brother. They're like whores for reality
But do
competition
you remember
shows.
they did a season of that I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here? And those two
Yeah.
were on that. Or like pretty much they drop them in the jungle or something and like, it's almost like Survivor but with celebrities. Like they were on that. And they
Yeah.
were
But they've
Not
done
a celebrity.
they've
I
done
wouldn't want to go anywhere near
two
that. so-
seasons of the UK Celebrity Big Brother.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's only like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, so I don't really know how it works.
It starts on the 7th and goes to the 25th.
Yeah,
But
it's
they keep
lame.
their same schedule, so it's like 3 times a week. But yeah, I mean, you got to imagine like most of these people, despite being like B or C list celebrities, do have other commitments. So.
No, I would really like to see
You
them.
have their
I would really like
commitments.
to see them quarantined for 3 months, like on the regular show,
Can you
just to see what
imagine?
happens. I know
Like,
that's what I'm
just-
saying. That's where the real money's
being
at.
locked in a house with Mark McGrath for 3 months.
No.
Joe, Mark
We get it,
McGrath.
asshole. You want to fly? Shut the fuck up.
Joe, Mark McGrath seems like somebody you 100% would have on an old iPod somewhere.
He, I don't know if you guys used to watch Rock and Roll Jeopardy that used to be on VH1, but he was insane. Him and Dave Mustaine were like, they would just like
He was the
destroy.
host, wasn't he?
No. It was actually Jeff Probst who hosts Survivor now.
Now
Wow.
he's always hosted Survivor.
Well, yeah, I mean at the time Survivor hadn't
Yeah.
started yet.
Gotcha.
Back in the day.
I'm not gonna argue with you.
Oh, so many things. John, you gonna be all right?
So it looks like, according to, when I Googled it, Scott Baio is going to be on the first hour of Good Morning America tomorrow to refute these
Well,
salaciously false claims.
He's like a truther now and a trumper and all kinds of things. So
Which-
it
yeah, no, he's been like on that crazy tip for a little while.
couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. CC,
Yes.
CC, back to happier things. You pointed us in the direction of this trailer, and it is awesome. What movie is this?
Well, I brought up Thoroughbreds, and then we landed on Hereditary, which is awesome as well. So I'm not sure which one you're.
Well, tell me about
talking
tell me about Thoroughbreds first, because I did like that trailer too.
Oh, okay. So Thoroughbreds has Anya Taylor-Joy, I think that's her name. Anyway, it's the girl from Split and The Witch, and she and her best friend, who happens to be like sociopathic, she has like no emotions, and that's like a huge point of contention in their relationship, decide to kill her stepfather. So it's kind of like a mix of American Psycho meets Heathers. So that looks pretty good.
Yeah, no, that looks fun.
What is it? This is dated 2017 though.
Yeah, and it has
Yeah.
Anton. Well, and we were talking earlier, it has Anton Yelchin in it, which is, heartbreaking, but he's so good, so I got to see it regardless.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Anya Taylor-Joy.
It probably did the festival circuit last year, but it's listed as March 2018 release date.
Do you think she's related to Enya?
Yes.
John, tell me about this other one, Hereditary. This movie looks amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I've done no research other than watching the trailer, but I concur. This is a A24 joint. It's produced by, allegedly, or according to the trailer, the same people that produced Split and The Witch, which were, at least The Witch was A24. I don't think Split was, but maybe. In any event, it just looks bonkers crazy. I mean, I don't even know that I can really get anything out of the plot other than there's like a family and the daughter seems to have some kind of hereditary affliction that makes her do the evil things. They keep talking about the grandmother or like so the mom's played by Toni Collette. And they keep referring back to her mother. I don't know. It's just one of those trailers where like a lot of crazy shit happens, and you're just kind of like, this is disorienting.
It looks wild,
So,
yeah, but like
Yeah.
really creepy. Maybe potential this year for like the one scary movie. I feel like that's our ratio.
The only one we're getting.
No, but like scary. You know what I mean? I always come out of the year and I'm like, this is the one movie that scared me this year. I'm thinking this might be the one. So
Yeah.
Does that have a release date yet?
Yeah, it's June 8th.
Man.
So
I gotta say
got
too.
a little wait on that one.
I gotta say between like these two trailers and the ones we discussed a couple weeks ago, I'm getting kind of pumped for 2018. I feel like there's a lot of really good shit coming down the pipeline.
The
Yeah.
reviews
Yeah,
for
I think-
Lords
I
of
think it's
Chaos
cool.
have been like super good. Like we talked
Yeah.
about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about.
Pacific Rim 2 and that Don't Make a Sound movie or whatever with Jim from The Office. That's what it's
Okay.
called,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Well, technically we are a week away from being back in the theater or in the theater, but I think we're probably gonna skip it next week and pick it up the week after. Winchester.
Mm.
Oh, right.
But other than that, it's actually a really slow start to the year. And to your point, then there's like a bunch of stuff. Obviously, we've seen trailers for. It could be that a lot of stuff's going to hit direct to streaming as well. So
I did see
Guess we'll see.
one. I did see one positive review for Winchester, but I've gotten pretty.
it was like a drunk person.
Well, I've gotten pretty good about like trusting my gut on trailers, and I'm not wrong that often. And I get
Is it not supposed to look good to you guys? Like I think it looks super creepy.
I get a bad vibe from the trailer.
Have you guys seen any of the marketing for Red Sparrow?
No.
Yes.
I
One.
am unclear. Is this something we're going to cover? It's listed as a thriller, and
I
like
don't
I
think
saw,
so.
I saw
mean,
a
it looks
commercial
like-
that looked weird.
It looks like if Black Widow had a movie and Jennifer Lawrence was Black Widow.
Like if Black Widow
Yeah.
had sex with a fish and then had
Yeah.
a fish movie.
That's true. I guess it's more of like a I don't
I
know,
think it's-
spy killer deal.
I think it's more of a like spy drama
Oh,
thriller.
oh, this thing, yeah.
By
It
you,
looks,
Winter.
it looks like somebody saw Atomic Blonde. We're like, hey, we should do that.
Right. Yeah.
A spomedy.
but like red instead of blonde.
Yeah.
Well, because she's
something.
Russian.
Those
Yeah.
on you.
I, did, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
Atomic Blonde
That's
was
why.
like I saw 2 movies last year that weren't for the show, more like in theaters, and that was one of
Yeah.
them, and it was totally worth it.
I wasn't a big
Oh,
fan.
there you go.
You weren't a big fan,
No,
was
it was like, there was a
amazing.
lot of
Of Atomic-
whispering.
Of
and
Atomic
then, like,
Blonde.
yeah,
dude. It was so
There's a-
good.
there was an obscene amount of whispering.
You're crazy.
Joe,
Amount of
come
whispering.
on.
Just too much whispering.
All right, Joe. I can't deal with you right now.
Aye, aye.
The
Well-
fight scenes were good. Too much whispering.
All right. Why don't you tell us what we're drinking this week?
Beer guts.
Congratulations, Joe. You killed the opening of the show with that hot take.
Thank you, guys. This week I picked a beer. It's The Shape of Water, a story of young romance between a mute lass and a fishman. Age-old story. And,
Tale as old as time.
and if you're getting ready to finally take the plunge and start doing it with sea life, you might as well pick a beer with a pretty hefty alcohol content, and that beer could be from the good folks at Yonata Brewing Company, based out of, I believe they're St. Louis, Missouri. I don't know why I don't have that in front of me. But this is their Sea Legs, which makes sense. It's a Baltic Porter, which I don't think I've ever actually done a Baltic Porter on this show before. Salt Lake City, Utah is where they're based out of. So Baltic Porters they sort of have the same history or the same sort of story as an IPA. Whereas IPAs, they up the hops in those beers so they could, go these long journeys across sea without getting too funky. Baltic Porters, they just went balls out and said, let's just up the alcohol content. So, any imperfections that show up are just going to be washed out by like pure burn. This one comes in at 8% alcohol, which is a little bit on the lower side actually for some of these. But still, this one is actually, it's one of my favorite Baltic Porters. Because again, like I've talked about this before, I don't usually like the big alcohol taste in a beer, but this one I think it does a really good job of sort of covering that with the malt and almost like a roasted flavor. So it's super good. I don't think I've done any other beers from, I don't even know if I'm saying them right. Yunenta? Yeah, Yunenta.
I thought it was Uniata, but I don't know.
Uniana? Maybe. You're probably right.
Whatever it is, I guarantee Schnorrs is wrong.
Yeah. Wow.
No, I'm not going to the mat for this. I'm just telling that.
Shy melon.
But it's interesting. They are one of the larger quote unquote craft breweries in America. I think they're like partially owned by a New York company now, but like haven't like totally sold out, which is, there's something to be said there. This beer is great. Everything else I've had of theirs is usually pretty good. So I definitely suggest them. And they're pretty like readily available. So you can definitely find this one and others of theirs out there. Their website is, I'll just spell it, uintabrewing.com. And when you get a chance, check them out.
Joe, your dog is trying to get comfortable behind you, and he's just spinning in a circle, and it's really adorable.
He's a fucking nut job. I found out this weekend, if I literally like scream at the top of my lungs, "Hi, Lemmy," he'll start howling.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cool.
love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah. I will not go into detail as to how I discovered if I scream at the top of my lungs at him.
Had a couple of Baltic Porters this weekend, did you?
When Saturday morning when you're alone in your house and you start screaming at your dog.
Oh, good times. All right, guys, it is time. Let us take a quick break so that we can review The Shape of Water.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. John
Okay.
Schnars.
Eric.
Words.
Elegant, simple. So,
That was
so
a
perfect.
that was a deconstructed intro.
Yeah, it was something. Today's word is mermaid.
Oh.
That's right.
Hmm.
A mermaid is a fictitious or mythical half-human sea creature with the head and trunk of a woman and the tail of a fish, conventionally depicted as beautiful and with long flowing golden hair. It comes from mare, which means sea, and then maid, which I think we all know what a maid is. I actually looked up merman, and it turns out the definition of merman
Is a male
is
mermaid.
a male mermaid.
Right.
No
Merman,
shit.
Dad.
Yeah.
Merman.
I'll tell you one
Yeah.
thing. I super don't like that use of the word trunk. It makes me uncomfortable. It's a trunk of a lady.
I think, as Eric also pointed out, or somebody pointed out at the beginning of the show, he's not actually a merman. Our friend here from
Yes.
Shape of Water.
He's like
he's
a
more of a
usually
mud puppy,
Eric
I
and
guess.
I debunk your word choice, but now you're just doing it for us. I appreciate it.
Well, mud puppy didn't seem like an appropriate word of the day. So
I always like the
here we are.
story. I always like the story that some of the original mermaid stories came from people seeing manatees, which I always found hilarious because they're like the butt fuggliest animals on earth.
Yeah, like that has never made sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
Hey,
It
when you're
yeah, it
out to
looks like a
sea
cow.
for like 3 months at a time.
But you know,
Yeah.
it's
good.
worth
Everything starts looking like a lady, am I right?
Jesus.
it's worth
You've
noting.
got like scurvy and you're fucking dehydrated. You're just like, I don't
Well, might as well fucking a sea cow.
know.
Oh, that's where
We
this is
cannot
going.
seriously talk about this movie and how much you guys enjoyed it if you're gonna be disgusted by me.
No,
saying
that's
you
fine.
fucking sea
I'm
cow.
fine with it. John, tell me what this. Tell me about this movie.
Oh boy. All right. There's a lot to cover, so I'm gonna try to keep this short for Joe's benefit mainly. Shape of Water, nominated for 13 Academy Award Oscars. I don't know. In any event, directed by Guillermo del Toro. It stars. He also wrote the screenplay with Vanessa Taylor. It stars Sally Hawkins as she plays the main character. I believe her name is Elise. You have Octavia Spencer, Michael Shannon. My IMDb page is not loading, so this is causing some problems. And then Doug Jones in the sort of iconic merman / amphibian / whatever we want to call him. Richard Jenkins.
Corn
It's really-
dog.
yeah, it's a who's who of a lot of powerhouse acting, which I think we can talk about. But yeah, so this is the story really of Sally Hawkins. She's the main character. She is mute. She works alongside Octavia Spencer, who plays her character's name is Zelda. They work together at I believe it's a Department of Defense research facility. They never like sort of exactly clarify, I don't think, like what department the facility lives under, but it's essentially kind of like a research facility, pretty big, nondescript government type of operation, except that they also end up cleaning these pretty I don't know, arcane laboratories, and one of them is a laboratory that houses what is revealed really early on in the film to be this amphibious man. I mean, we'll talk about it. He looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon. I think very clearly sort of inspired by that. And so they're cleaning this, and they're allowed to sort of like go in there fairly freely to clean it. But pretty quickly, the Sally Hawkins character starts to establish a relationship. There's some other sort of like undercurrents going on. You've got the main doctor who is overseeing this sort of research. Turns out is also a double agent working alongside the Russians.
Twist.
I mean, it's revealed like really early on.
Also, Michael Shannon is a pervo.
Yes.
Yeah, Michael Shannon is just interesting on a lot of levels.
Do you
the character's
wonder?
operating on a lot of levels.
Do you wonder
Yeah.
if he, like the real person, Michael Shannon, eats glass for breakfast? Because I do.
Have you ever watched interviews with him, or he did the "What's in My Bag" at the record store?
Oh,
He's a
yes.
nut. Like, he's crazy and does
More
not
importantly,
seem.
Did you ever see him on Lip Sync Battle?
Oh my God, no!
Is that
Yeah.
where-
But I'm
I mean,
going
he's-
to as soon as the
he's
show is over.
Probably really fun, and like has to just let out all of his demons on screen because
Yeah.
it's
He's-
bizarre.
He's super well cast here. I mean, he's essentially the main antagonist. He's brought in to run this project because it's unclear if he runs the entire facility, but he's certainly sort of like overseeing this project with this amphibious man. And as things evolve and he becomes sort of more and more wary of a lot of the different threads that seem to be coalescing, he increasingly becomes unhinged, I guess. He also has an incident where the amphibious character bites his. Does he bite the finger all the way? He does. He bites two of the
Yeah,
fingers
yeah.
all the way.
Yeah,
off.
because
Yeah.
she finds
And
him.
then-
She finds him and puts him in her lunch bag, and they get mustard on him.
Yeah. So I should point out I saw this movie like way back in December. So it's been a hot second for me. So
Well,
that's
I
I don't know. I
watched
mean
it-
that's I think pretty much all we need to cover.
I
in
watched
terms
it
of,
last night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
good.
she
you
falls-
guys will have a lot more details.
She falls in love with the fish man, and then begins to hatch a plot to get him
To hatch some fish eggs.
let him escape because basically the government wants to kill him. In the meantime, the Russian agent wants to abscond with him. She doesn't know that part, but yeah. So
Well,
then,
he's also told he has to kill him.
Yeah.
So there's
right.
like
yeah, right.
but yeah, I mean, there's like a lot. There's obviously a lot of scene setting that I skipped over. The Richard, what's his name? Richard Jenkins character is her neighbor. He kind of has his own sort of plot line. There's a sort of side plot, but he ends up being pretty critical in helping them break this guy out. Yeah, there's just a lot of wild stuff happening in this movie.
Cece, what do you think of this?
I love all of Del Toro's movies, so I was super stoked to see it. I thought the casting was phenomenal, and I overall really, really liked it. I kind of mentioned before, like, I don't know if it was the score and the palette, because I didn't think the movie was slow, but it almost got too dreamy for me in certain spots. And I literally thought to myself, like, I'm enjoying this, but I could also really go to sleep. So I think that's probably why it didn't make my top 10, but I really liked it, and I thought it was super well done. But out of all of Del Toro's movies, I wouldn't say it was like my top 3.
You know what's funny is I actually haven't loved a lot of Del Toro movies. Like this might be my
Really?
This is gonna sound blasphemous. But this is probably my second favorite one behind Pacific Rim.
Oh yeah, no. Pacific Rim's not even like on my list of Del
oh my
Toro movies,
lord.
Dude,
but I
Pacific
get it.
Rim is amazing.
My
God.
What? But like Pan's
I'll go to
Labyrinth
bat
or
with you
like
on that one.
even Hellboy,
Yeah.
like Hellboy was
I was
amazing.
gonna say.
I don't get Hellboy, man. I just don't care.
What?
All right,
Oh
Cece
no.
and I
Okay,
are very
we got
well
it.
aligned here.
Okay, yeah, we
Oh
can
my
move on
God.
from this.
Forget about
but
my.
I mean, I thought the storyline of The Shape of Water was really cool. Like John said in the synopsis, like you had multiple plots that were happening alongside the main one that were very complementary. Like you saw similar characters. You know, you see Richard Jenkins like struggling to kind of accept himself and accept where he's going in life, and that mirrors a lot of Sally Hawkins' character, and as well as Octavia Spencer, like her character, they all kind of band together beautifully. And it's, I mean, I don't know a better way to put it. Like it was a really well thought out movie.
Casey.
So, yeah, I liked it. This had a really great fantasy setting. If you could get past, to me, it took a minute. Well, like when the trailers came out and stuff, I wasn't sure what to expect at this because my first reaction was, oh, I hope it's something to do with like Creature from the Black Lagoon or something like that. Which you could make the argument that maybe this did have something to do with that. There's nothing really directly connecting it, but then once I got the idea that it wasn't about that, I had kind of a hard time wrapping my head around it. But once I got into it and you get into the flow of the story, I think the pacing of this movie is really what he nailed more than anything, as far as compared to other movies of Del Toro's like this. Now, I would go as far to agree somewhat with Eric. I loved Hellboy. I loved Pacific Rim. I liked Crimson Peak. I liked Devil's Backbone, stuff like that. But like when you start getting into more of Del Toro's ghost stories and stuff, they don't grab me as well. They move a little too slow. And this seemed to have the perfect balance between the too slow of what he does with his ghost stories that I myself don't like, and his action movies and stuff. So it was kind of a good mix, and it was neat to see how he put these kind of styles together and come out with it. So yeah, I liked it. It's a really good dreamy fantasy flick.
Joe.
I was really excited when I saw the trailer for this, and despite the back and forth John had, I really wanted to see it. Now that I finally have, and I think a lot of this might be due to the fact that like there's just been so much talk about this. Like everyone I see talking about is saying like it's the most beautiful movie ever, and like it just kind of fell flat for me. Like I'll agree. Like I thought the cast was amazing. I thought everybody did a really good job. And like so much to the point where I actually didn't really care about the merman lady story. Like I was honestly, I would have been more interested in seeing Michael Shannon, or that's his name, right?
Yeah.
Like I would have been interested in more seeing like his backstory and everything that was going on there, because I thought he was like amazing. I thought he was great in this. Like I agree with CC. It gets a little too dreamy for me. Like halfway through, I was kind of like, I don't really give a shit like where this is going. Like I'm interested in the story. It flew by for me. Like it's a 2-hour movie, so I thought it like kept your attention. But I was kind of like, all right, this is over now. Like I didn't really care about the progression of these characters or what actually was the outcome at the end. I don't know. Maybe I just don't care about mermen. Like if I'll agree with Michael Shannon.
That's the real story here, is that you
bring
don't
that
care.
guy into a lab and open that guy up and let's figure out what's going on here. Like
I'll be honest, Joe. I really thought like dog owner Joe was gonna react differently than old Joe would have to this movie, but you surprised me, Joe. You threw me a curveball.
I don't know. I feel like I would feel the exact same if she was trying to make love to a dog on the screen. So
John Schnars.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, I was also really excited to see this. I think just like I'm in on Del Toro. Anything he does, I'm down for. And yeah, I don't know. This had like a really different vibe to it. You could pick that up just from the trailer. So I did sneak out and see this like over Christmas break. I saw it in the theater. I wanted to love it a lot, and I ended up just like liking it a lot. I will be honest.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, that's exactly
totally
kind of
agree.
how I felt.
I had a pretty bad theater experience, so like that hurt it a fair bit, probably.
Was there pee all over the floor like Eric's?
No.
That's just in the bathroom.
No.
But yes.
It was like two teenage girls. It was a very crowded theater, and it was two teenage girls sitting directly next to me, like literally on their phones the entire time. Like they paid money to sit in this theater and text. I was just like, and at one point I'm like staring over at them, and I just like didn't want to get into it. I was, whatever. So that didn't help. But overall, yeah, I mean, it is such a strange film in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously, like we'll get in. I mean, we've been joking a little bit about the the human on fish action. Like it should not be. It should not be just like passed on. That there is a lot of just like Sally Hawkins self pleasure in this film. Which,
yeah,
like,
but I thought that was really interesting to like.
Good for her.
I am 100% agreeing. Like there were decisions that were made that I like.
John.
Again, like I almost want to rewatch to kind of like now I know where the film goes. Like I don't know what I loved is like that Sally Hawkins character it's so difficult to pull that off. Like a character that does not speak the entire
She's
time.
so good, yeah.
Yeah, but
She
you
didn't
have
flub
this,
one line.
But he's really smart though. But what he's really smart about doing, and it's like it just goes to the point of how like this film is so well thought out from top to bottom. He puts these like brilliant character actors around her in almost every scene to kind of be like filters for her and for her to play off of. Like you've got Octavia Spencer and you've got her like best friend. What's that guy's name? I don't know that guy's name.
Richard Jenkins.
So like there is like the way that he did that I thought was really brilliant.
So I agree. I actually probably could have almost done with like less of those two. I think at times they were like because they would get into these arguments with her where they would basically like say the thing that they would like say for us what she was essentially saying to them, and it was almost like over explaining. I thought the character like, and it's just to touch on the self pleasure piece a bit, like that's like a pretty unusual thing to see in a theatrical
for
film.
sure. Well, and I mean that happens like 10 minutes in. Like I mean, it doesn't
There's
ramp up to it.
Scene, right?
There's
it's right out of the gate.
multiple full frontal scenes in this movie, not just the fish man.
But it
God, at that point, did you like scream in the theater that I'm sold? Like,
Sold.
No, but I like
yes,
hot dog.
It's a very assured approach to like fleshing out this character, right?
Oh no, definitely. I totally agree.
Yeah,
I mean it shows it for that character. It shows that she is on this very like well developed, well fleshed out path, whereas the other characters have to like over explain themselves, whereas everything she does is very much in the this is who I am, I'm okay with it, and this is what it's just a different approach, and I thought that was really, really well handled.
It's really interesting listening to everybody because I can see that, like, I mean, for better or worse at this point, dealing with this movie, if you haven't seen it yet, it becomes an expectations game. And for me, I approach this like polar opposite of most of you guys in that I was interested in the trailer. You can tell right away, like, okay, this movie fancy. And also it's Del Toro, and it started getting a lot of praise right away. But at no point was I ever like excited to see it. And so it kind of came and went. We missed it on the show, and I just kind of forgot about it. Seemed like a good fit to do this week. But I wasn't excited. I was almost like waiting to not like it. So then going into it, it won me over like very quickly into it. And by the time it was over, like I just fucking love this movie. And I think it's like, it's one of the most emotionally affecting things I've seen in a while. And I think that what you get from Del Toro and something like this is, and again, like I don't love all of his movies, but he's got such a confident hand for starters, just from top down, like the visual design, the kind of retro Art Deco thing, little touches like she lives above the theater with the sign, the hallways, like everything is just gorgeous in this movie. To like the lab looks like something out of BioShock or something like that. And you've got literally this mind-blowing cast of actors, like just a list of just like some of the best actors out there today, all getting to play off each other in these scenes. I think this lead actress, who I don't really know her from anything, she's really amazing in this movie. And it does what I think like a lot of the best genre films do, in that this is a major Del Toro thing, right? Like it's a thread through almost all of his movies, kind of giving voice to marginalized people or people who kind of live on the edges of society, who he obviously looks at with just a great deal of he obviously relates to people like that and has a great deal of sympathy for them. And then the way that he draws this parallel between her and this mer person, it's like, it's funny how, I mean, you know what you're getting into going into it with the romance, right? And it definitely goes farther than I think most people expect. But it's like, I think he does such a good job of establishing who she is that the idea that she jumps right into this like didn't seem shocking to me. I mean, it certainly takes a large amount of suspension of disbelief. But even right in the beginning, it's like you establish that she's a little quirky and she has kind of a morbid sense about her when she picks up the fingers. Like, it's no big deal. Like, Octavia Spencer's freaking out about the bloody fingers, and she just picks them up and goes, huh, and just like fans out her paper bag and puts them in there. But that's just a great example of like the way he plants these seeds, and everything kind of makes logical sense, even though the end conclusion is batshit crazy. It's like he brings you there, and in the process of that, tells like this very, I just think, like beautiful emotional story.
Yeah, there's a narrative economy to the entire thing. I mean, we like the opening sequence is the Sally Hawkins like getting to know herself and us getting to know her.
John, it's
but
been
like
15 minutes. You have brought up her the self-pleasure thing like 9 times.
Listen, it was very shocking, Joe. All right, no, but
it's like a 30-second clip, and you have talked about it more than it actually appears on screen.
It happens multiple times.
It developed the character for him, and that's it got the point across.
The point I was gonna make is like the film, there's just no wasted time, right? Like it goes right in. I think it's even in that first, like basically that first, I don't know, 10 minutes when the amphibious guy is brought in, right? Like they're in there cleaning and they see him brought in kind of
pretty quickly,
yeah. And so there really is no wasted time, and it really, I mean, it plows ahead really, really quickly. And what that does then is allows things like Michael Shannon to kind of have a little bit of breathing room. I mean, we get to see a couple of sequences of his home life.
Yeah, that's like one of the most surprising things is that you've got all three of the side character, like friend character, well, not friend characters, but sort of characters who revolve around the main lead. They all have their little side stories, and it's all actually handled really well and like woven pretty effortlessly into the larger plot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't get too heavy and it doesn't bog things down. So, and it kind of goes with my comment on pacing that he had on this stuff. It just really flows really well. And he doesn't, even when Michael Shannon ramps it up and he's going apeshit on screen, it's got a cutoff and it's a natural cutoff. And then he moves on, and you don't let them sit. You don't sit there and watch him choose scenery for too long to where it gets eye-rolly.
And I think in a more traditional plot structure, you could envision a version of this movie where the whole thing is the two of them in the lab building up their romance, and then the very end is her breaking him out. But that's like halfway into this movie, and so then he takes the second half to really kind of explore their relationship.
Yeah.
I feel like living in that bathtub must have been really cramped.
Well, one of my favorite, I do think my favorite sequence is them. I mean, them in that bathroom.
John. We know what it is.
Well, but it's so. But this is like the perfect example in some ways of this film.
But the water raises. It's like it's a set piece.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, exactly,
it's
and
super
it
interesting.
is.
It's really well done.
It's actually. Thank you, Joe. No, but it's fantastical at the same time that it's. I mean, it's. I don't know. It's quote unquote believable, but at the same time, it's not, right?
I mean,
like
there are moments there are moments that he approaches visually as if it's a fantasy film.
Right, but that's what's so great is that like he does such a good job of balancing that line of reality and fantasy that, I mean, she's this woman who lives in a very enclosed world, and her romance with, you know, Abe Sapien 2.0 is something that she's like really, you know, building up in her own world. So when she actually starts interacting with him, you don't, the line between reality and you know, fantasy kind of start to blur because she's, you know, made a lot of it up to get to the point that they are, but also it is really happening. So it's a really nice play on, you know, this daydream kind of well, when we are together, this is what it'll be like. And I mean, it's beautifully done. And the bathroom scene is a really, really great illustration of that. And like when the water starts to drip into the theater and it starts to kind of bleed into other people's realities I mean, is super fantastic.
I think I zoned out because I didn't realize that she lived above the theater until that scene.
Oh.
Which is so dumb. Like now, I guess looking back, I should have realized it. I think I zoned out. And
but
that,
see,
like,
but that's also like it's kind of reinforcing like she lives above a theater playing movies and like playing these fantastical type of, something that people get into to check out of their real life. And her real life is this crazy fantasy that's become true with this,
that whole
Believe it or
building.
not, like she goes next door and like her escape is like watching these old like
Right.
movies with her
Yeah.
neighbor. Like it kind of hammers home like the same idea that you guys are talking
The whole
about.
building, is just like such a cool, just looking
Mhm.
set piece.
It reminded me a lot of what was that movie you guys watched, Delicatessen?
Dude,
Where, like,
yes.
I just
Yeah.
I was thinking that last night. It totally reminded me of Delicatessen. Nice work, Joe.
It's funny though too because I swear, as far as like the sets go, the set of the hallway that shows her and Richard Jenkins' doors, how close they are, and everything at the end of that hallway, I am almost positive that I've seen that in at least like a couple other shows. That same hallway, because you know how sometimes sets and like real world sets get reused.
Yeah, it's very oddly
And
laid out.
Do what?
I said it's very oddly laid out.
Oh yeah, but I also
it's kind of standard in some New York apartment
Yeah.
buildings.
I mean, this was
I've
obviously
lived in apartments
like,
that look like that.
heavily influenced by Joe's apartment. That movie with the cockroach.
But I'm with you, Casey. Like, I don't know if it's in Hellboy or if it's in another one of his movies that, like, that's a pretty similar. It felt very familiar for sure.
I think it was something like completely unrelated to Del Toro, even because I can remember seeing it in something fairly modern too.
Yeah. Well, it's like John brings 100% right. Like that totally feels like a pre-war like apartment complex or apartment building.
Yeah.
In New York. Like,
well, yeah, that's quite possible because I am not familiar with apartments in New York City except for John's.
Or anywhere.
Some of my favorite moments in this movie are like the interactions in the apartment between Doug Jones and the neighbor. Like when they're alone together, and the neighbor's just kind of like, I don't know what to say to this fish dude, and he's kind of riffing to him. Are really kind of funny, but also like touching. They kind of get, they develop this weird friendship by the time the movie's over.
Well, it's really interesting too because it's like that's a very familiar setup. Like when your friend is in love with this person, or it's the first time you meet your best friend's partner, and you're like, cool, well, we have this one person in common and that person's not here right now, so what?
Yeah.
Like, what
I don't know.
do?
Joe fell in love with your husband the first.
Trapped in a tub. So.
Right.
Joe fell in love with your husband the first
I don't know
time
how
you met
often
him,
that happens for you, but okay.
Any like other? I mean, let's talk moments, right? Because it's a film like filled with just really cool moments.
Can we talk about Michael Shannon getting his finger bitten off and then having it reattached and it slowly rotting? Because that was terrifying.
When he ripped his fingers off, it was like I actually exclaimed out loud in disgust.
Yeah. I mean, there was an audible gasp in the theater, and I was like, I can't, like, oh man.
About the point that he held him up and both of the fingers were pitch black, my thought was, at what point do you just give it up that it's not
well,
happening?
also it's hilarious. Like what kind of surgery did he have? He had surgery to reattach his fingers, and he had like 2 pieces of like medical tape around him. There was no like cast or.
Well, they set it up at one point. He says like they're not even sure that these will take.
Yeah.
So they kind of set that up.
They just weren't really well secured, but. I think the scene that was very, it was really hard to watch, but I thought that it was a very, I don't know, it was very telling of Michael Shannon's character when he makes his secretary call in Sally Hawkins he deliberately spills a glass of water and he tells the secretary to call Sally Hawkins. She comes in, and while she's on the floor cleaning it up, he starts talking to her about like he kind of knows that she has feelings for the monster, and he starts talking about how it's awesome that she's mute, and that basically implies that like he could make her speak. And that was one of the most intensely terrifying like moments of that
I
entire
bet
movie.
I can make you squawk.
Yeah, like, but even just as a villain in a movie, like that oozed evil, and it was really impressive that Michael Shannon was like, it was suffocating how intense that was.
He was
It
so
was
good.
one
Like,
of the. It was one of those moments where it was very clear that he saw himself above her, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
was rubbing it in.
Oh yeah. Well, and it was like at first I was like, is this happening? And you could see that was kind of how her character was processing it too. And you're like, oh God, he's about to say it. And it was, I was like, wow, that's a great villain for you, I guess.
It's kind of like what I talked about at the top, like that took away from this a little bit, which is, it's hard to explain, but like, I thought he was so good that I was kind of fascinated by his character. And even like Octavia Spencer, like I was fascinated by the dynamic between her and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And what the heck's his name? The next door neighbor,
Richard Jenkins.
That scene, that scene when
no one remembers his name.
The scenes of him in that the diner with like the pie, like it's such like a small side, but I thought it was like so well written. And like when that guy, like I don't want to spoil anything, but when the guy like finally realizes what's going on and like you know is a dick to him, like it like breaks your heart. Like I feel like all these things were so well done that it actually took away from like the quote unquote love story for me.
See, that's interesting, because I was gonna say that scene you're talking about in the diner where Richard Jenkins kind of realizes the point. Well, you know what? She's in love. It's going well. I'm going to help her out. Yeah. That was the part of that movie too. That was like the most moving part of that for me, because you know the guy puts it on the line. It's like, oh damn, dude, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
The scene, so good,
the scene where Michael Shannon, the scene where Michael Shannon confronts Octavia Spencer in her house, and the husband. Who's just fucking out of it? He gets up and tries to do something, and Michael Shannon goes, "Sit down!" like really loud, and the guy just sits right down. That scene was like amazing.
Yeah. And right after that, then when she was getting ready to call Eliza, and her husband's like, "No," he said no.
I also love that. I love the scene. I love the scene too, where the lead actress like stands up to Michael Shannon after she's kidnapped him, and Michael Shannon's trying to, and she starts signing "F you" to him, and like that's the best scene. I love that.
Yeah, because I mean they show that in the trailer, but it was still just as good in the.
But it's a great
film.
moment because it's the first moment where you see her as strong and defiant, and not like kind of meek and timid.
Yeah, well, you see her as everyone else sees her as she sees herself. Like she sees herself as that, and I think that's why you see her in these super intimate moments at the beginning of the movie, and that movie is the solidification of her character for the audience, you know? Like it just really shows she's able to show off like how she feels against any resistance.
And to go further, like with what Joe was talking about, with all the detail they put in the side characters and stuff like that, even Michael Shannon's home life was fucked up.
Oh yeah, it was.
You only see like one scene with him at home with his wife and kids, and it's even bizarre then because they're.
I found that pretty relatable.
He hates those kids so much. Like they're kissing him goodbye to go to school, and he's got that angry face on.
Well, like even the moment with his wife, like
same, Michael. Same.
Get out of here.
Hey,
let's talk about.
It's weird that we think that moment with his wife is strange, but the merman on woman action is like totally normal.
I mean,
let's talk about Doug Jones.
He's amazing.
One of my favorite little things he does in this movie, and I don't know how much of it. I'm sure it's like at least assisted with CG, but there are these moments where he's up against the glass, and then somebody comes in or something, and he just sort of bounds backwards and peels away and like disappears into the water. I just feel like he is so good at moving like not a human, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree.
Like in this really uncanny valley kind of way.
Let's be fair, for this movie, this isn't really the first time he's played this character, though.
Oh no. I mean, if you liked Hellboy, he plays Abe Sapien version 1.0 and is almost as good as this version. So. But in that, like, it's very similar.
He gets to talk in that one.
Yeah, he does get to talk.
Although I don't know if it's his voice.
I think it is, but the dude's amazing, because I think, Eric, you were talking about in the email thread, like if he's ever gotten an Oscar for his roles or something like that. I think I honestly think that he'd be one that we see shows up with a lifetime achievement award
Yeah,
award
I
at the
think so.
Academy.
Well,
or
right,
something
because
like
it's
that.
like it's tough to fit him into traditional categories, but like at some point you
Yeah.
have to honor him with something. I feel like.
Well, it's. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the debate this year was Andy Serkis and
Mhm.
the Planet of the Apes films. I mean, and that, I
The different-
agree. Like,
The difference being like, I'm sure there's some animation going on Doug Jones, but it's less. The percentage is much less, right? Like it's him in a fish suit doing
Sure.
this movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's motion capture in both cases. Like they're, I'm sure they're not filming him in that outfit necessarily. Maybe some of it, but there's definitely some like sort of like green screen bodysuit stuff. I would guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird. I agree. Like they're gonna have to figure out a way to reward these folks who are doing this kind of work. But right now, it really is like a 2-man category.
Yeah.
I
It is.
just wanted to say two things I just discovered. In 1992, Doug Jones played the Thin Clown in Batman Returns, which is
Right.
an amazing movie, and he was in Jack Frost 2: Revenge of the Mutant Killer Snowman, one of my favorites, as
Mhm.
as
We
Dave.
did a spectacular on that, didn't we? Or no, we did it on the
We
first
did the
one.
first one, yeah.
He's
he-
also from here in Indianapolis, so there is more than corn in Indiana.
the same year that he was in Pan's Labyrinth and the Hellboy. Oh, that's a video thing. The same year he was in Pan's Labyrinth, he was in Lady in the Water, which I
Yeah.
didn't even realize.
Wow,
And
what a
he's
year,
doing
huh?
He's doing
He's got
Star
this whole
Trek
aquatic thing.
Discovery
Oh, and he
now.
played the Silver Surfer in the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Why hasn't this guy gotten a lifetime achievement?
Yeah.
yet?
I mean,
Oh shit, he was speaking of he was in Ouija Origin of Evil.
As himself, like as a
Oh,
as
and
a
he
human?
I totally forgot. Okay, he's the Bye Bye Man also. So if you look at his filmography, he went from the Bye Bye Man to The Shape of Water, which is
Oh,
like,
boy.
could you imagine a better rags to
but
riches
wasn't
story?
he? Didn't he do the
He
stuff?
made
for
our top
Mama?
10 and our bottom 3.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's got to be something.
Hell
Right?
of a guy.
I don't think that's rags to riches for him though. That's a paycheck because he knows he's good at it, and people are going to come
That's-
find him, and they're going to pay him what he wants.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is he just kind of does his thing, and it's like I don't care what movie it is, just pay me and we'll do it.
Yeah. Good
Good
for
talk.
him.
Any other moments we want to talk about? We want to talk about the ending. Let's talk about the ending, I guess, because it gets decidedly fantastical in the end, and I'm kind of curious, like people's
Well,
feelings.
yeah,
on
I was
it.
going to say the one thing, and it came up a little bit during the email conversation, which I know I didn't participate in, but I was reading.
Okay.
My readout, and this is like somewhat spoilery, but not really because it comes up pretty early in the film. They don't, or at several points in the film, you see that Sally Hawkins has these like scars on her neck
Mhm.
that are like when you first see them, the initial thought I had was like, well, they look like gills,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, the film definitely goes in that direction pretty hard toward the end, but in my mind, it wasn't a big swing
Right.
toward that
I agree.
because
Yeah.
they had already kind of teed it up.
Well, because
And-
didn't Zelda say something like Olivia Spencer's character said something like when she was orphaned and found like by the water or something.
She was
So
found
like
on
it,
like the side of the
okay,
river, like
okay.
in the
Yeah.
Amazon. or
I
something,
think
right?
Yeah.
I think I forgot
that part I
that.
did not pick up on.
yeah, so they kind of like allude to it, and I thought that's why like
Well-
she immediately felt this connection to
And
Well,
the
they-
creature.
she alluded that that's why she was mute too, right?
Right. Yeah.
the and he has these like healing powers. So that's the other thing that kind of tees up the end of the film is you see these scars on her neck. He has these healing powers, and they don't. What I liked is that they didn't. It wasn't like super beat you over the head with it. They
Yeah.
did leave it open to interpretation, to an extent. So we don't know. I think the happy, we're giving it the happy spin,
Right.
but
yeah.
the end in some ways is like a little darker,
Yeah, I
It's-
think you
there's-
could
there's some
argue.
dark shit that
I think
happens.
you could argue. You could definitely argue a literal read on the ending. I think you could also argue that is a sort of death fantasy kind of a thing, and that it's just like
Yeah.
not necessarily real. But I think that either way, it's happy in the sense that they're together, and they're
Right.
together, and
Yeah.
and they're no longer in a place where nobody understands them, if that makes sense.
Right.
Well, and she doesn't feel alone
right.
anymore
Yeah.
because they made it clear that she feels like she's all by herself because she's the only one like her, and that's what drew her
Right.
to him in the first place. That
Right.
he was like me.
She's got a fish person boyfriend now.
Yeah. I was
just-
gonna say that was
Fine.
another.
Like, what happens in the next one? Like if they start having like problems at home, like you can't break up with Fishman. There's only one Fishman.
I kept
She
thinking.
only
out
one fish man.
tadpoles.
I kept thinking.
There's not plenty of fishmen in the sea.
I just couldn't help but think about the logistics of her being in the water now. I was like, I feel like her skin would get really wrinkly.
Like, where do you go from here? Although, like,
Yeah,
I guess the point,
that's
like, I kind of talked about it over email. Like, she has the gills, so like maybe she
Right.
was always meant to be back in the water.
Maybe he could turn
Right.
her into like a full-on fish.
That's what
person.
I was thinking, that maybe like because he has these type or those types of healing powers, that like her real form is more of a, that's why she felt so much like an outcast, is because she didn't belong in that world. She belonged more in his world. And
Is this
that's-
movie just the opposite of The Little Mermaid? Is that what we just discussed?
Yeah.
that's what it sounds like.
I mean, I really think so. Like we were talking about this over email, but Del Toro was trying for a while, I guess, to get a remake of The Creature from the Black Lagoon going.
Right.
Fell through. He was pretty upset about it, and so he wrote this, which I almost take as like him just kind of being like, "F you, I'm gonna make a sequel to the original Creature," right? Because isn't the original Creature, Casey? You might know this. Like, doesn't it take place in the Amazon?
Yeah.
So you could argue that, like, he gets captured after that movie, brought to the U.S., and now here's your sequel. I
Yeah.
mean, really,
Yeah.
the whole thing kind of fits, and he sort of gets the chance to explore the character in the way that he wants to do. Like a really, I mean, the thing that kept kind of coming to me during this movie is friggin' ballsy, and not just
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
not just because of the more lurid aspects to it, but for somebody like Del Toro to kind of put his reputation on the line and just come and be like, look, I want to tell this story, and yeah, like there's a monster in it, but it's a love story about this one. It's just, I don't know. It's like it's a very confident, ballsy thing to. for
Well,
him to do.
especially after like when we mentioned before, different directors, totally different caliber of directors. But when you see Shyamalan trying to do the same thing with the lady, something similar with the Lady in the Water, and that was not good at all. And then to see him come out to do something that has some of the same themes and stuff like that come out of nowhere, it is ballsy, and it's cool to see that it worked.
You ever want to like think about like what it would be like for like a person in olden times, like Gone with the Wind era, to get in a time machine and come forward and see like what movies are nominated
Oh my
now?
god, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta stay with me here. She makes love to the fish man.
Yeah, follow me on this one. It's hidden, you see, but then it opens up and it comes out.
Let me tell you, Brett Butler here. All right. Here's
And
what
then-
happens.
Yeah,
The one thing I would say about this movie with Del Toro too, for me, Del Toro had a stretch of time there where he was announcing all these projects that he wanted to start to work on, like In the Mouth of Madness and The Creature from the Black Lagoon and stuff like that. And he was throwing out all sorts of things. Oh, I'm going to work on this next. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on this. And it got to the point where he'd making a new announcement. I kind of rolled my eyes. It's because it's like, it's never going to happen. It's going to end up following through. As exciting as it sounds, you kind of forget about it. This one, he didn't have all that hype where 5 years ago he was bragging about how he's going to make a movie about a fish man falling in love with a lady. It kind of came out of nowhere for him, at least for me. I didn't hear a lot of preamble for it, so that was kind of a nice turn for Del Toro too.
yeah. I think too that this movie is gonna be a real milestone in his career. I think he's already the kind of director that's really respected in the industry. I think that other artists and directors like have a real love for Del Toro, but this kind of mainstream recognition on this kind of stage for him, I feel like is going to be huge in his career. Like I think that he has kind of
Oh yeah.
put himself
Yeah,
into
definitely.
like kind of into the next tier of director. Like he is god tier director now. I feel like after
Yeah, I think that he'll definitely be able to do a lot more of what he wants to do now.
like he's kind of got
Especially
that.
if they pull in a few wins at
He-
the Academy.
I just
Yeah.
I feel like he's in that like Tarantino kind of auteur place now, where they're gonna kind of let him do whatever he wants after this.
I mean,
he's kind of been doing that already.
Yeah, I agree.
Main-
I just think this
Yeah, but,
really
like those
solidified
Hellboy
it.
movies like didn't do great. Pacific Rim flopped a little bit.
Yeah,
I
he still had to fight for it.
I think he's made a lot of amazing movies with a pretty slim margin of
But
appeal.
he produces all his own films. I'm pretty sure. Like I mean I shouldn't get it, but like I'm pretty sure he actually has like a ton of freedom, because he's basically been kind of writer, producer, director on most of these things. I mean he's had a ton. I mean I don't know. He's had a fair bit.
Listen,
of success
he's never
as well,
been
so,
nominated for a movie like this. Is all I'm saying. Like I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
And a lot of his movies, though, are still around familiar territory. So you have Ghost Stories. You have the Hellboy was a little different, but like Joe said, those didn't do that well. As no matter how much we liked them, they didn't do as well. His Ghost Stories do better, but they're pretty typical ghost stories as far as that goes. And now that he's shown up and made a movie about a lady and a fish man falling in love, and it's got nominated for 13 Academy Awards. He's going to show up next and say, what about a man that's half cow and a woman that's half pig, and we can put them together? And they're going to say, okay.
Man, bear, pig.
It's possible.
It's funny, until somebody said at the beginning of the show, I completely forgot that he did Crimson Peak,
Yeah.
which is like kind of a
But
weird.
a lot of people didn't like Crimson Peak either.
No, I
loved it.
It's kind
Did
of a
he
weird.
direct that? Like, was that him, or I thought
Yeah.
he didn't just
Kind
produce
of a
it?
weird little
No, he
awesome
directed it.
movie. Really, another movie too, with a great cast. You definitely get the feeling like good actors very much want to work with this guy.
Yeah.
He is still supposedly on board with the Haunted Mansion based on the Disney ride movie, and I am so fired up about that. I've been looking forward to this for like 10 years.
So, well, he's also, if you look at his IMDb page, they've announced Pinocchio, which could be
like the live action, like it's attached to Disney, or
Sounds terrifying.
I don't know if it's attached to Disney. I'm looking now, but yeah, it is.
It's not
it
with
would
that.
be-
No, it's not with that annoying Italian guy again, is it?
It says a darker version of the classic children's fairy tale
Yeah,
of
I
a
mean,
wooden puppet.
I feel like as soon
I
as
don't
you-
think it's Disney.
I feel like as soon as you start
really.
talking about doing that in like real life, you're talking about a horror movie because it's terrifying.
oh
yeah.
yeah.
No.
Wait, now it says that it's canceled. I don't know. The friggin' IMDb, man.
It just
No,
got canceled while Schnars was on IMDb. Just now.
It's funny, like I'm looking at it and I like clicked on it because it says announced on his page, and then you go down to the trivia. So who knows? Maybe the trivia is just fucking nonsense. But it says November 10th, Del Toro has announced this project is canceled.
Maybe he'll
So,
finally get to
but-
do At the Mountains of Madness now.
That would be
Okay.
amazing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You never know.
I think that one's been dead and buried a long time ago, though.
All right, guys.
Unfortunately.
The Shape of Water. Okay.
Oh.
The Shape of Water. Would you recommend it, Joe?
I would wait till DVD, but yeah.
Casey?
Absolutely.
John?
Yes.
Cece?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm also gonna say yes. It's really amazing. It's just a special kind of thing. All right, guys. That's gonna do it for that. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
We told you the rules.
Remember the first one? You can't get them wet.
Don't let them eat after midnight.
What if they're eating in an airplane and they cross the time zone? I mean, it's always midnight somewhere.
You didn't listen. Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not. Gremlins 2, the new batch. Rockin' your way this summer. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, June 15th at a theater near you.
Hello, creeps.
It's John Kassir.
The voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I'm a friend of bloodygoodhorror.com.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back.
I can't get behind like a fish love story, but a fish Lady Gremlin or a Lady Gremlin human
I
story.
was about to say, I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier, but yeah, I don't know why you have such a problem with a man fish, but a lady gremlin is okay.
Do like every
Because
time
the gams, look at the gams on that thing.
like whenever you're watching Gremlins 2, Joe, are you like so frustrated that guy's running away from her?
I don't know. Like, what's your problem? Like, I think he's just in his head. He's troubled by society's norms.
Yeah,
and
he's scared about how much he is
20
attracted
minutes
to her.
ago.
Doesn't
at
he?
the end, he's like, all right,
Yeah, doesn't he eventually kind of get into it?
yeah. At the end, like they have like
At
a
the
weird little like
Yeah.
like wedding scene, and he's kind of like, all right, yeah. I mean,
That's
obviously
right.
this fucking Lady Gremlin is fine as hell.
Info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. No fan mail this week, but I'm sure we have some Twitters.
Thanks, dicks.
That's all right.
We do have a couple tweets.
I'd rather they hit us up on Twitter anyway, where there's a character limit.
We are monitoring 2 hashtags, as always. Hashtag BGH Classics, our first one. This is for folks who are exploring the back catalog of Bloody Good Horror, which you can do by becoming a patron at patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. The first one comes from Skizbot, Mr. Skylar Willett. Eric says, Joe, what did you think of Godzilla? And also, I'd also like to know everybody's relationship with Godzilla. Joe says, I think fuck buddies is the word.
Wow.
That actually is
Again,
from
and
the
you have a
episode.
problem with the fish man? Jesus.
That's
291 Godzilla.
That's great. Perfectly apropos for tonight. Also, I did notice on IMDb, the lead actress in this, I don't know her name or whatever. She was in
Sally Hawkins.
She was in Godzilla and is scheduled to be in the sequel too. I couldn't tell you who she was, but that's what IMDb says.
Yeah, the Universal one.
Yeah, the Matt. Matt.
She was one of the scientists, and I only know that because I stumbled across that nugget earlier at the start of the show, and I had to go look at pictures to see if I could pick out who she was.
Yeah.
Megan, that's at Third Breath. The quote is, shouldn't Eli Roth be a better filmmaker at this point, just based on how long he's done it?
Yeah.
And that
was
was
me.
an Eric.
Yeah, that we keep talking about, like, it's like him and Rob Zombie. We've been doing this so long. It's like we, in our heads, I think we still think of them as these like young up and coming directors. It's like, no, dude, he's been doing this shit for a long time. He should be good at it by now.
No,
he's not.
That episode 436, The Beyond. I don't know how the hell we got on to Eli Roth, but
I think at some point, the Green Inferno came up during that episode. I don't remember why. Probably just weird Italian things. Probably.
Sometimes we digress, I guess. That's believable. Okay, so our other hashtag, Ask BGH, where you can really just, ask anything. Now up to 280 characters worth of things, in fact. The first one comes from Attorney at Space. That's at Attorney at Space. Wait, do you dig multiverses? Hashtag wish upon, hashtag Ask BGH.
I don't even think we talked about that on the show.
We had somebody hitting it. We had somebody else hitting us up on Twitter today too about being a slut for wontons.
Oh yeah, aren't we all?
Yeah. I mean, I like wontons. They're fine. Whatever. Christian Stampanato, that's at ShineMaster9000, says, "Hey, BG Horror, any plans for reviewing Netflix's open house? Aside from some of the poor judgment that the main characters demonstrate at some points in the movie, it's a pretty good watch."
Funny you should ask because I'm traveling this weekend. We are doing that movie because it's on Netflix.
That is not the movie we discussed doing.
Wait, are you sure?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is the movie.
No,
we
that
discussed.
is the movie we discussed.
Joe.
Joe is,
Yes.
The whole point was because Eric could download it on the Netflix client.
Yes.
There you go. So yeah, we will be coming at you with that next week. Next one, Jeremy Burgess at JD Burge. He says, excluding the obvious pick of Pan's Labyrinth, or maybe this film for Schnars, what are your favorite Del Toro movies? I will say that Pan's Labyrinth is my favorite Del Toro movie, which I agree. I think that is the obvious pick. I really like Devil's Backbone, and then I really like the Hellboy films. I mean, like all of them.
It was like years ago when I tried to watch it, but I almost couldn't make it through Devil's Backbone. I thought it was so boring. To be
I haven't
fair,
followed The Devil's Backbone too.
I was
has
like-
a really slow pace.
It's really slow, and The Orphanage is awesome, but it's also really, really slow.
I believe The
yeah.
Orphanage he only produced.
Oh, did he only produce that? Okay.
I was young too. I mean, it might be. I would never go back to it because I don't know, life's too short. But I might like it more if I did.
Yeah, I actually
love
like
those.
Hellboy 2 even more than Hellboy.
I love both
Yeah.
of them. Like I thought they were. Super
I like
fun.
them both
And I'll
too.
agree with
but
Eric. Like,
Yeah.
Pacific
Rim was
Rim, I thought was awesome.
Pacific
I thought it
Rim's
was a ton of-
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I like all of his movies.
Pacific Rim. I mean, what's great about Pacific Rim, and we're talking about all these different movies. He has such range. Like all those movies are so different, and the Pacific Rim is just like a gleeful movie. It's like joyous to watch.
I mean, I loved Pacific Rim. That's just not my like
You hated
favorite
it,
pick
said
of
it.
his. No, it's got Charlie Hunnam in it. So Del Toro and Charlie Hunnam and Idris Elba,
And-
which Kyle just gave me the side eye for all of those.
And Charlie Day. It has all the best
Charlie
Charlies.
Day, yeah.
I could
Yeah.
have Charlie Day.
And that guy who plays the weird Russian scientist.
Oh, you
Fun
mean-
for a minute,
You
that's
mean
true.
broke
I can
ass
tell you
Willem
one
Dafoe?
Del Toro product that I flat out don't like is The Strain.
Oh yeah.
What?
Never watched it.
No. Oh my God.
I tried to read that
Listen.
book 3 different times and could not get
Oh
into
really?
it.
I liked the book a
Whole
lot.
series is so good.
Yeah, I loved it. The
Yeah.
TV show I thought was kind
The
of
TV
boring, but like
show
the
was
the
kinda
movie or the books. I
Wait,
thought
he
were
didn't
great.
write the book, did he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. Him and Chuck
Yeah.
Hogan.
Oh, this guy's
Yeah,
they
Chuck
co-authored.
Hogan is more of a like a medical thriller type author. So Del Toro has more of the like like vampire-esque background, and then Chuck Hogan comes in with like all of the like medical aspects. It's really
Yeah.
guy's a real.
Actually, if you're looking for books, Eric, like I would suggest those. Like I thought
yeah,
they
they
were
were really good.
I actually, yeah.
Casey, you don't know. Shut up.
We were talking about a pre-show. I'm reading Leviathan Wakes right now. I'm really enjoying it. I have yet to read like a horror book that I enjoyed, so I would need to find. Yeah, I mean, I'd give it a shot. I just
I can throw you some Rex.
Yeah, I was about to say like you've got to. It takes a while to find what genre, like subgenre in horror, you like to like really,
These last
Fine.
like I've watched or I read for the book club the last days of John Sparks, which I thought was awesome. And what was the other one? CC, you know what I've read. Final Girls, like
yeah,
both of
Final
those
Girls,
were
yeah.
awesome. Like I think you would actually like those. I think John Sparks you would like a lot, Eric.
cool.
I would suggest it.
Is that like
Yeah.
Jordan Sparks?
Yeah, it's the last day of Jordan Sparks. Like they talk about like her like rise to fame and stuff. It's not horror at all. Did I say it was horror?
Oh Christ, guys, we have actually some pretty good questions coming up. So let's move on. Marina Turnbull at Reen_75 says, when I was 4, my dad lost a finger in a workplace accident. The resulting stump both horrified and fascinated me. Any of you guys have any horror stories of you or people you know losing parts? Quote
You know what's
unquote?
weird is I know Marina and her dad was an accountant. It was an insane story. Like with
Wait,
a
what?
Seriously?
I was like,
This one time, my dad shaved his mustache off, and it
Yeah, my dad
legitimately,
did that when I was
it
little.
legitimately looked like someone had removed part of his face, and I found it terrifying and
Oh
awful.
my God.
the same
well,
thing as this poor child losing her dad.
one
losing her
time,
finger.
I basically cut off my brother's finger one time, and then I basically cut off my own finger one time. So
At the same time?
karma. No,
Oh,
the
okay.
first time when I cut off my brother's hand, like not his whole hand, just his finger. we were cutting grass with scissors because we were making frog houses. I don't know,
Terrible
but
idea.
Just was this was this in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house?
no, actually,
Because
this
we
was
were
in our
making
Georgia.
frog houses.
I don't even know, I was trying, I don't know. I didn't know frogs had houses, but that's what we were doing. And then another time I was collecting cicada skins, and
What?
in our Texas
Yo,
Chainsaw
you did
Massacre
some
house,
creepy ass stuff back in the
Lord.
day.
I had this huge jar of cicada skins, and we were walking up so the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house has this really steep staircase, and I tripped and I slammed my hand down into the jar, so it almost cut off my thumb.
Oh my god.
And my mom just took us to the hospital without like cleaning up. So when my dad came home, there was like this blood like pouring
Dear
down
Lord.
the steps.
I don't
What
want
did-
you to take offense to this question, but like during this period, like what like distant level of cousin were you dating at the time? Like,
I wasn't dating anybody because I
was it like
a kid.
third or was it like second or like
What?
further out?
What were you gonna do with a jar?
I mean, we just kept it as decoration. What do you mean?
Okay, it wasn't for like some kind of witchy spell or something.
I mean, yeah, you could crush them up and use them in powders, but I don't know. I was a kid. Like, what else do you do?
Questions.
I heard if you snort them, you get really high.
I mean, I collected acorns or something. I don't know.
Okay, what were you gonna do with acorns?
I don't know. Look at them.
Okay, I don't know what I was gonna do with
Big
the
trees, all right? It's not the same as collecting dead cicada skins. Making frog houses outside.
Frog houses.
Don't try and equate dead cicada skins to goddamn acorns.
I tried.
And any other
All right.
amputation?
It's been fun.
I didn't get to see it happen, but I remember being like 8 years old when the first time I realized that my grandpa was missing the middle finger on his hand.
Oh,
It was just like a weird awakening moment. I was watching him tie his shoes. I'm like, oh my God, what happened to your finger? And he said, what? This one?
I just for some reason I just pictured that scene last week with Ryan Phillippe like with his buddy with the chainsaw on his tippy toes, like stretching for the thing.
Just poke at it, Ryan. Just poke at that tree.
What you want to do is just jump and then swing the thing. And you'll get it, I swear.
Just poke at the branch. All right.
All right. Skizbot checks in with a question, and I think he's on a mission to make me uncomfortable when I have to read these questions. I'm just gonna read it. What horror monster is most bangable? As a hormone-flooded boy of 12 when Species was released on video, Syl holds a special place in my heart.
I think I was definitely at the age where I understand that sentiment.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think I'm curious for Cece's answer because I think for guys it's like too obvious because there's like all kinds of stories of like female like
sure.
I was like,
Edith
there's so
Flytrap.
many more hot female monsters than there are like male monsters. I mean, I don't know. I guess I thought Brad Pitt in like Interview with the Vampire was like the first like hot vampire.
All right, come on.
I mean, okay, are you meaning like actual monsters?
Like, but you're saying Brad Pitt
John,
as a
that
vampire
counts.
is hot. It's
John,
like,
that counts.
Okay, well, all right. If I'm talking like Universal monsters, I think I'd have to go with Swamp Thing because Frankenstein's no.
Well, that took a hard turn.
Is that why you were building?
I did like my first answer, so.
Is that why you were building frog houses?
It could have been some,
This is where we're gonna live, Swampy Man.
No, I think your first answer was perfectly valuable.
When we move in, I'll bring my jar of cicada skins.
I don't know. Maybe that's what they eat. Who knows?
When you moved into the Kyle, were you like, wait, I just need to know, are you bringing the jar of cicada skins, or should I bring mine?
Yes, that's exactly how it happened.
And so anybody go in the living room? Where do you want yours?
I like this. You know what this is? We're peeling away the layers of the CC onion here, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, that's what's happening. I see this.
2 seconds away from texting Kyle and asking him how many cicada skins you currently have in your house. And I guarantee his reply will be, dude, you don't even know.
Probably. That's why I finally got my own studio, because he's like, you need to keep all of your stuff up there and out of our like public shared area.
These bug skins are really piling up, Cece.
All right, John.
Anyone else for Bangable Monster?
Oh, the Lady Gremlin. That's
well, and also
documented.
There's no other answer.
Who was the bad gremlin? He was always really cool. Everyone. Spike. Yeah.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Splice.
Oh, that's come on. That's
the movie was a little confusing for me.
Bride of Frankenstein, baby.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Can't go wrong.
See, I thought that was hotter than Bride of Frankenstein.
Can you go with any of the like lady demon monsters in the Hammer films that are kind of like around Dracula?
Oh yeah.
What are they vampires? I don't think they're vampires. I can't remember.
No, there are.
They're vampires or like succubus.
Yeah.
That word.
Let me introduce you to a
That's
lady.
kind of a cheating one, like CC's earlier.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Moving on.
All right. Last question. This one we're gonna have to go deep. Would you guys help Joe if he wanted to kidnap a fish man from a government compound and keep it in a bathtub in his house?
See, the
This
thing is,
Craig, 4-color Craig. Sorry.
the thing is, the neighbor doesn't help her until he has nothing left in his life.
Well,
right?
yeah.
Like
and
until he
it's
has
basically
nothing,
the-
until he
yeah.
has nothing left to lose, he's like not into. So the question is, would you risk everything in your
we
life
that
to help
desperate?
Joe kidnap a person? I don't think so.
I
I
think
would
it's
say no.
it's a moot point because I would be in there with Michael Shannon, like, yeah, cut that fucking thing open. What's just going on inside?
I was gonna say I don't think Joe would be the one trying to kidnap it. So
Yeah.
Just so he could kill
I'm the-
himself.
I'm the only one who related to him. Like in Avatar, like the sergeant. Like, didn't you want him to just like fucking wipe out
Are
those
you
people?
are you kidding me, Joe?
Build a
it's
goddamn
the
mall? Like,
opposite.
Joe,
Oh my God.
I'm
we
a
got
little
Monster Joe coming out today.
I'm a little concerned for your empathy level, Joe.
hey,
Yeah.
the boots of progress march on. All right.
Jesus.
I think you might be on the wrong podcast. I think you need to find like a national security podcast to be on or something.
So these jokes land a lot better with a Real Housewives audience. Okay?
Yeah.
God.
Good
Okay.
times. That's all.
Okay.
There's
That's
a
what we
hammer
got.
monster for you, John.
Oh yes.
I think
Yes.
we've discovered tonight that Joe is the real monster.
Yes.
Sorry if I want to see humankind, progress.
Next week, what are we doing, John?
Open House.
Open
Now streaming
House.
on Netflix.
Open House. It's on Netflix, so you can check it out. And then there's a theater release, right? That we're just pushing a week.
Yeah, Winchester.
Winchester.
The
I think
house
we have,
that goes.
Starring
I think we have an open house review on the website too. BloodyGoodHorror.com.
starring what's her face there, John? In Winchester, what's her name there?
Helen Mirren.
Helen, yeah.
Dame Judi Dench.
Dame Helen Mirren or whatever. The lady Helen
It's
Mirren.
unclear if she's a dame. We'll see.
Maybe the classiest actor we've ever had in a BGH movie.
Wait, did we
Possibly.
never talk about Before I Wake and reviewing that?
We did. It's on
Right.
Netflix too.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought we were doing next week. Well, that's where my confusion.
It's on the list, but that's not the one we were talking about for next week.
Well, I win.
Well, we can circle back.
All
Yeah.
right. And don't forget, if you want to watch this show live every week as we record, check us out, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. It's exciting times. Yes, it is. All right. It's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.